Hi, welcome in this new video of tier list anything. Today, we're going to talk about One Piece. What can I say? I'm a weeb. This was bound to happen. But I know you aren't here to just hear my opinion on things, so I'll add a twist to it that I will explain in the rules. I'll lay them right away. The first rule is that I'll be ranking the Mugiwaras depending on how friendly our relationship would be. The second rule is that they are brought in this world, without their devil fruit power or hockey. I will have to extrapolate how they could live in our world based on their personalities. Today's tier list is shorter than usual, with only 4 tiers, but it will work. And now without further ado, let's get going. Our first entry in this tier list is Luffy. Oh my god. What kind of life would Luffy live if he was among us? Maybe he'd be trying to run for president? He should give it a go. There is history of countries electing literally a crazy person as a ruler. I feel like he would be one of those very absent-minded person, always reliable to his friend but also imprevisible, funny to be around and always up for mischief, as long as he's having fun. He'd be a high school dropout bouncing from small job to small job, not worrying about his responsibilities and just enjoying life without thinking too much about the future. He'd be very capable and would always be learning something new, and if he sets his mind on something, he'd always find a way to achieve his goals. He seems like a decent guy. I'll put him in hate tier. Even though he's trustworthy and fun to be around, his attitude should be kept in mind, as he's rather immature and never taking things seriously. I'm a very down-to-earth person and I usually can't spend too much time with people like that because they end up annoying me. I would enjoy hanging out with him from times to have a laugh and have a good moment, but at the end of the day I know I would not be able to have serious conversations with him, so he wouldn't be my best friend. Our second entry is Zoro. Zoro is a great guy. He's also trustworthy and unlike Luffy, he's serious when he needs to be. This dude would be an athlete. He'd go to college to pursue a career in sports. He has a strict diet and he's a gym bro. Hell, he'd be my gym bro. I feel like Zoro would be kind of an introvert focused on his training but would turn out to be very outgoing once you get to know him and if you have common interests. Zoro would be a true Chad and wouldn't be a bully. He'd be nice to everyone. That's the kind of guy I'm looking for when I try to make friends, and I really think Zoro deserves its place in the S tier, as he'd probably be my best friend. The third entry is Sanji. Sanji would be a pretty decent guy. The man would be an amazing cook, and I'm pretty sure he'd be fun to be around. If it was Sanji alone, I feel like he could also be my best friend. Hell, I'd witness this cute bromance between Sanji and Zoro as they keep provoking each other. But I can only have one best friend, and it's already Zoro. Furthermore, Sanji has a bad trait that would prevent him from stealing the place from Zoro. The guy's a creep. He would be a huge simp, harassing women on social media, and always trying to hit on girls. He'd be the kind of guy to have an insane body count, always change girlfriend, and also cheat. I wouldn't trust him with my GF because I'm pretty sure he'd see no issue in hitting on her and would try to justify it as testing her loyalty. Sanji would be the kind of guy I'd tolerate hanging around because he's nice and fun as long as there are only guys involved, but he'd become insufferable as soon as a girl walks in. I don't like cheaters and I don't like men who don't respect women, so I'd probably ignore him in general, be friendly towards him when he's around. And he could de-escalate pretty fast in the F tier if he tried to do something to one of my female friends. Eventually he'd develop a porn addiction and might end up in jail for sexual harassment or even worse, so I'm good putting this dude in B tier as long as he behaves himself. Next one is Nami. I feel like Nami would be a very superficial girl. She'd be hot as hell and be fully aware of it. She'd pursue money and she'd probably have an OnlyFans which would bring her lots of cash. She'd be buying Louis Vuitton and Gucci clothes and she'd show off her money. Ironically, she'd also be very cheap and would always try to get invited when she goes out, or she would make excuses to avoid paying. She'd be very active on Tinder and would always find guys to pay things for her, and she'd be milking her sugar daddy dry. Nami would clearly be what people call a college slut, and once she's lived her life and made millions selling pictures of her butthole, she'd marry a guy 30 years older than her and act as a leech. So I don't condemn this lifestyle. At least she's smart enough to take advantage of her beauty and make money without having to work. But to be honest, we don't share the same values and I'd not engage with her at all. B tier. But hey, maybe she could make Sanji simp for her. Next entry is Ussop. Oh my god, I already know in which tier I'll put him. But let's save it for the end. I feel like Ussop would be like one of these pathological liars. The kind of guy who claims to be an orphan even though his parents are still very much alive. Do you have a degree in mechanical engineering? Well, Ussop would have a PhD in that field, despite not being able to change the tires from his car alone. Do you make 200k a year? Well, Ussop would make 400k a year, despite still living with his parents. Did you see Eminem in concert? Well, guess what? Ussop would actually have been at that same concert in the VIP lodge and would have ended his night in the backstage because he'd actually be friends with Eminem, despite his Steam status being online for the whole night on that day. You get it. Ussop will always be better than you. He'll always have more. He'll always make more. Whatever it is, he will claim he's better. Did you beat a world record? Ussop beat it first off camera and injured himself doing so he can't reproduce it for your very eyes. He'd be nice up front and could even pass as a great guy at first, but he'd quickly be caught up in his lies and reveal who he really is. Manipulative, narcissist, liar, cheat, Ussop would be all that, and still be an underachiever and live a sad and lonely life. For some reason, I also feel like he'd backstab you on the first opportunity, as long as it benefits him. The guy clearly needs help, but that's not my problem. I'd hate him and would not want to be involved with him. F tier. Then there's Chopper. Aw, he's so cute. Sadly, rule number 2 is no devil fruit power. Sorry, Chopper, but you're just a blue-nosed deer and you can't talk. I would not be able to interact with him, so B tier it is. Oh boy. Here comes Franky. Franky would 100% be a pure redneck, but not in a mean way. I mean, Franky would be smart and nice. I feel like he could be a very good mechanic, and he would probably succeed if he decided to study robotic engineering. He'd be very blunt and not afraid of saying what he thinks is right. I picture him as a fun guy and a reliable friend. He'd always be working on something, like fixing up an old car or building things in his backyard. He would not live in a big city. He'd be more of a countryside man. There isn't much to say about Franky. I'd probably act friendly towards him, and to be fair, if Zoro didn't take the place, he could be eligible to be my best friend. The only risk I see with this guy is that for some reason I can easily picture him as a Trump supporter. But other than that, I don't think the dude has any quirk that would make him score lower in the tier list. I'll put him in Hey tier, but he's more between Hey and S tier. Oh, here comes the best part. Robin. Robin is literally the best entry in this tier list. The woman is calm, she's smart, she probably has 1 or 2 PhD in history, and she's a great archaeologist. She's also very mature and reasonable. I feel like she'd be open to dialogue and would never ever get angry. She's so calm and reassuring, but she can also stand her ground and be firm. She has a troubled past of abuse, therefore she's more on the reserve side, and she's the quiet girl, but once you earn her trust, she's there for you anytime, anywhere. We'd share a lot of interest, like reading, learning trivia about random shit, and just talking about the world and enjoying our time spent together. Robin clearly deserves her place in the highest tier. No, she's even above that. I'll put her in the secret tier, the ultimate, the date, SS tier. Robin is the only one in this whole crew who's mature and caring enough to engage in a serious relationship. This, and considering that the only other choice for me would be Nami. Ah, another easy one, Brook. Brook would have been so fun to be around. Sadly, my rule applies here too, therefore Brook is just a dead guy and can't talk. Like Chopper, B tier. And lastly, there's Jinbei. It's a bit hard to rank Jinbei because he's not human. He also does not fall under rule number 2 because he's not using a devil fruit. I'll sadly make Jinbei the first victim of racism in this video, and will be ranking him as if he was human. Sorry fishmen, it's not that I don't like you, but Jinbei would be a freak if I didn't change his race, and he'd probably end up in a laboratory, kept secret by the government, and fall in B tier by default. Jinbei would actually be a pretty decent man. He'd be nice and smart, and he'd have a great personality. He'd be loyal and strong, and I'm sure he could be my bro. He'd actually be more on the serious side. He'd be the guy who prevents us from doing illegal or weird shit when the boys get together for a night out. I feel like Jinbei would actually start a family and have a great career, so he'd not be around much. He'd make up for it by offering really great quality time, but it would be scarce. Jinbei's a bro for sure, and he'd be my friend. Hey tier. And bonus, Vivi. Vivi would be this young girl that was part of the friend group when she was young but who had to move because her dad would be a CEO and a very important man. She would have been far away and we would not really have kept in touch with her, but should the group meet her again, it would be like she never left. I have friends like Vivi and I look forward seeing them again. I tier. And that settles it. I hope you liked this tier list. Who would be your best friend? Who would you hate? Give me your own tier list in the comments, and I'll see you next time for another tier list. Feel free to subscribe to my channel for more weird tier lists. Also, did you watch my video about useless superpowers? It's really fun. You should go watch it right away.